Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Drew Glover, and he is the founding partner of Fiat Growth and the general partner at Fiat Ventures. Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm very excited to learn more about, the companies that you've created and that you've grown.
I'm excited to tell you more.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, before we get started, would you just mind letting the people know where they can find you on social media, your websites, and the internet?
Yeah, most definitely. Social media, you can typically find me on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time there. So that's just Drew Glover. Again, founder of Fiat Growth, general partner of Fiat Ventures. You can check out our websites. That's fiatgrowth.com. And then it's fiat.vc is our venture fund. And then on top of that, Drew Baylor, that's Bailer, is my handle for Twitter.
Awesome. Awesome. So, let's just start from the beginning and talk a little bit about, where you grew up and where you're from.
Yeah, grew up in Oakland, California, in East Oakland. Grew up in a family where deeply rooted in civic engagement in the nonprofit world. My mom was a principal at the Oakland Unified School District. Dad ran a nonprofit called Occur, which helped folks, where he fought for folks to have access to affordable housing in Oakland. So even after that, my family kind of spans wide within Oakland and the Bay Area on civic engagement on many fronts.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I mean, I sit on the board of a nonprofit myself, Tar River Community, where the main focus is just being able to provide affordable housing in a similar light. So I think that's incredible. But what I want to ask is, how did growing up in East Oakland and seeing your parents achieve and accomplish these great things kind of impact your outlook on life and success?
Yeah, it's one thing that I value so much in where I grew up was just the exposure I had to all different forms of life, socioeconomic, just social in general. My parents both being a part of Oakland, it's you know, such different levels was eye opening to me. Mom being a principal in the Oakland Unified School District, there being so many different schools in the Oakland Unified School District, and these were all different GOs that had different folks, different minorities, again, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different at home backgrounds. I got exposed and I got to kind of grow up within that community, and it gave me a base level of just understanding, what those communities thrived in, like what made them tick, perspective around like the richness of their lives, like family being really excited about the life they lived. And my parents made it a point to actually put me in private school because at the time the Oakland Unified School District was going through a lot of really tough changes and the graduation rate was really low. So they put me in private school, both really from K through eighth, and it gave me this really interesting juxtaposition between both worlds. Where I come home to East Oakland, which where my neighborhood wasn't like call it like the inner city that people see all over TV. It was, to me, it was my norm. It's where I grew up. But getting exposure to these private school kids and these private school communities and these homes, I would, again, was just growing on this exposure that I had to the world. So for me, kind of growing up, it taught me these different languages to speak. And I always jokingly say to everyone, I was like, the languages I speak aren't, Spanish or French or Italian. They're actually different code switches where I can walk into a room and be in the room with East Oakland natives, or I can walk into a room where, it's billionaires or millionaires or whatever it is, and I can quickly switch the way I speak and the way I interact with them. And where I grew up in my roots and my parents and what they taught me and the exposure they gave me as a kid gave me the ability to build those skills and characteristics that have actually turned into what I believe is one of my superpowers in life today, which is just being able to walk into any room, regardless of who's sitting in there, regardless of their background, and being able to connect with them on their level.
Exactly. I mean, and I think, you said it perfectly because, just having a chance to grow up with that duality and being able to be versatile it's a superpower, and it turns you into a Swiss Army knife just to be able to adapt in any situation that you're in. and not only adapt, but to just connect with people on a different level, because you understand kind of both sides of the coin.
100%. And you're able to create this ease in every conversation and this comfort, and you know it, like you go to one part of the city, and there are certain things that bring them comfort in communication. You go to another part of the city that brings them comfort in communication. And I know it as a black man, I'll walk into a room with some races, and I know that I gotta have a different pitch to my voice to make it so we can
Exactly.
all kind of discuss all different topics on a super deep level. So again, like that was something that I like really thank my parents for. And I don't know how conscious they were when they were like giving me that exposure, but I thank them so much for giving it to me, because I was able to learn how all these different types of communities interact with different people and what makes them tick. And that's become a very, very special part of me today.
You being a black man and doing business and creating relationships with millionaires and billionaires, and starting these successful companies, was it ever a moment in time where it was intimidating to you, doing things at the scale that you're doing? Or did it always kind of feel like second nature, like, no, I can handle this, I'm prepared for it? How was that, kind of situation for you?
See, that's a really interesting question, because I feel like I had a transformation in my career where I started out trying to be the best actor in these spaces. Like I wasn't sure if I was really walking into the tech world as me. I was walking into the tech world as what I thought the tech world wanted from someone. And so I felt like I was coming in there just trying to um, make everyone believe that I was like supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And it took me probably a decade, like 10 full years, to get enough experience to really understand both my skills in that space, in that ecosystem, but also me as a black man and my skin tone in that ecosystem, understand like what it meant to me, understanding other folks' experiences, and just like getting in there and doing the work to really just start becoming myself. And that was a switch that happened when I was like, I'm like, I've been doing the work. I've been an individual contributor. I've been a VP. I've been a director. I've been all these different things. And through all those experiences, I'm now confident enough that I don't have to act like something. There's no like fake it till you make it in my DNA anymore. I've made it from an experience standpoint. Now it's time for me to put those experiences to work. And that's when I started telling myself, like, hey, I want to define the way I work differently. I'm a big believer that work tomorrow isn't going to look like how our parents did work. And honestly, the economy is not set up for you to do a job for 30 years and like be able to afford a house and retire comfortably. So I made the conscious choice when I really built up that confidence to look at work differently. And it started out as me bringing together multiple kind of advisory jobs and consulting jobs together to create that full-time salary that I wanted. And lucky enough, I was able to reconnect with a really close buddy of mine where we started consulting together. And that ultimately became Fiat Growth, which was the business that has catapulted, this next stage and next chapter of my career.
That's incredible. I mean, and I want to focus a little bit more about just the company that you founded and created, like that you just mentioned, which is Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures. So, I guess my next question is, what is Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures?
Yeah. So Fiat Growth was founded a little over 4.5 years ago by myself and my co-founder Alex Harris. I went to school at UC Berkeley, and Alex Harris was a buddy of mine. But I played football at UC Berkeley during the golden age of Cal athletics, where it was Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson. I could keep going down the list. And during that time, Alex was actually a equipment manager. So I was a walk on initially, and so interesting, as you're a walk on, you're just like respecting everyone, right? Like you're not
Exactly.
one of the scholarship kids where your shit stinks, the shit doesn't stink, but you're like out there just trying to like earn your spot. So I spent a lot of time with everyone that played football and everyone that didn't play football. And Alex and myself, we built a really great relationship. So we kind of stayed connected during our career post college, and he landed at a company called Chime, which is a large neobank, one of the largest in the world at this point, one of the digital neobanks. And then I was at a company called Steady, which helps folks in the 1099 world improve their financial health. We both basically had a role where we had all these different companies and products trying to partner with Steady and Chime. And we were almost chatting on a weekly basis saying, I like this company, I don't like this company, and why. But we started seeing this trend that financial technology was changing and folks were building financial products for the 99% of America that historically needed products the most, where previously, everyone was building products for the 1%, the folks that already had money and wanted to help them manage it. So we started looking at the companies that were building for what we thought this next generation was and started advising them. We had this super unique model from day one where we basically get a retainer for our services, so a flat fee on a monthly basis. We would get equity in these companies and it would start vesting immediately. And we really wanted to align incentives to the businesses we worked with. And then on top of that, we'd ask for the right to invest. We didn't have the money at the time, but we knew at some point we wanted to deploy capital into these companies once we helped them scale their business with our marketing chops and had the ability to take advantage of the upside. So fast forward to today, we have 25 full-time employees. Business is split down the middle between performance marketing and partner marketing. And we basically act as a turnkey CMO. So early stage company, they just get some funding. We say, don't go hire a CMO that's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Come to us. Let us build your entire growth ecosystem. And then at that time, let's go hire that internal person together. But we're going to give them a well-oiled engine and pass them the keys of something that's already been built versus telling them to start from zero. So Fiat Growth today, 25 full-time employees. We work with anywhere between 30 and 40 clients at any given time. Super picky in terms of who we work with, because every company we work with, we have to see as an investable company. And then, that actually inspired, and I'll just jump into it, Fiat Ventures. In 2021, we founded Fiat Ventures, which is a $15 million venture fund where we almost exclusively invest in the clients of Fiat Growth. So we typically need to work with a company anywhere between 3 to 12 months prior to investment, but we get to dig in, get into the mud with these founders and the team. And then when that time comes for them to raise their next round, we have the ability to look at them and say, hey, we helped you get from point A to point Z. Now we want to invest in you and we want to be able to take this thing to the moon.
Exactly. I mean, and I think what you just said is genius, because you have the chance to screen the companies that you work with and the ability, the flexibility to invest in them. Once you get to kind of see behind the scenes or look under the hood. And I think something special that Fiat gets to do that many investors or venture capitalists possibly don't get the chance to do is actually see the company culture as well. So you can see, hey, is this a healthy environment? Will it thrive and last in the long run? So, I mean, I think that's a genius business model, which, leads me to my next question. I mean, you mentioned that you guys came up with and created this unique model to, help the company get started, and as well as envision and create where you want it to go for the future. So how did you guys come up with this business model? Where did you gain that business acumen from to be creative and have that flexibility to do exactly what you wanted to do?
So I wish I could say on day one, Alex and myself sat down and just started whiteboarding out this grand plan of everything, but we didn't. Alex and myself, to our success and sometimes our detriment, we're creative, out of the box thinkers that have this entrepreneurial DNA that just have this grind, this dog grind in us where we're just not going to stop. So what we did is we started saying, hey, let's build this really great 2-person, maybe we'll scale it up to 5-person consultancy focusing on these specific type of fintech companies. And when we got to 5, we said, let's keep building. And what happened was we kept getting to these different moments, these different plateaus, and looking at each other and said, why should we stop now? the good thing is when we first started the company, we basically asked for a lot of things that we knew we couldn't do today. So, for example, like Fiat Ventures became a very easy decision because the time we started fundraising for it, we already had 45 companies we'd work with that we already had the right to invest in, that were already doing really well. So for us, I always call it this organic journey where, you know, because we had all the great DNA of like an entrepreneurial spirit, every single time we got to this next plateau and we said, do we want to stop here and this is the rest of our lives, or do we want to keep building? And what I love about what we built and the team we built around us is every time, even today, we get to another plateau and we're looking around and saying, should we just like focus on this for the next 20 years and just keep building it up, which we could comfortably do? We look at each other and say, hey, like, let's just draw a little bit further outside of the lines and like see. And the more successful you are, the more risks you can take. Early on, we were looking at each other and like, man, like we're in it together. We're in it together. Let's just keep grinding. Now when we make these decisions, yeah, we do a little bit more measurement before we cut. There's also a little bit more risk. And also now we have a reputation, we have a track record, we have this incredible network. So now it's not just me and Alex sharing ideas in a room, but when we have a really crazy idea, I'm saying, let's go ask those two CEOs that are our current clients. Let's go ask that one company we invested in. Let's go ask that advisor that really loves our business model to see what their thoughts are on this idea. And so now that organic growth is becoming a lot more measured, which of course, like as someone that's an entrepreneur, like I want to be able to run as quickly as possible in the direction that I want to run in. But it's also like super gratifying to know that we built this foundation that is like, it's made of rock, right? Like really hard to shake. And we're in a place now where we know we're not going to fail. It's really a question of how big are we going to get?
That's incredible. I mean, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned that Fiat Growth, that arm, steps in as a CMO for companies to help them grow and help them kind of get it running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And you know, something that I think is really amazing that you've managed to do is like you mentioned, just build out this network and build these relationships to where, you know, you've built a reputation to where people want to work with you and people want to bring you in, and you know, have you help grow their brand and grow their baby. You know, most founders and CEOs are very protective over their businesses, over their companies, and may not want to hand over the reins, or may be afraid, or may have trust issues, whatever it is. But, you know, I just want to ask, how did you go about building these organic relationships?
You know, a lot of it just sits on your reputation. One thing again, through that journey of me, you know, starting out as an actor in the tech world and gaining enough confidence to become like a true owner of myself, I've become really good at telling my story. And I'm just like any entrepreneur out there that's like, hey, if you don't know how to tell your own story, like go look in the mirror and say it over and over and over again. Because I wish I could say every single client we got was this organic thing, but like that was part of like the dogged grind that we had as entrepreneurs, and turning a small network into a really incredible one. You know, all the work we did was great work, and great work creates more great work because the people you did great work for will go to the people in their network and say, you got to go talk to Drew, you got to go talk to Alex, you got to go talk to Fiat. On top of that, it was just like really understanding the different pools in my world of people that I knew I could add value to. I didn't look at it as who can I get clients from. I said, who in my network can I add value to their work by doing my work? Like, for example, a large number of our clients that we have today come from other VCs that are also early stage, that have just invested in a very young company, call it like a pre-seed seed company. And they reach out to us and say, hey, these guys just raised $1 million. These women, these guys, like whatever one, like they just raised $1 million. They really need some growth guidance. And so by me partnering with them, they just made that investment. They want their investment to do well. So we're going to work with them so their investment does well, but we also get a client. We have the ability to invest in them as well. So creating these like really great ecosystems where like everyone's helping each other. And as a, like the business development person in me is, you know, the best partnerships person, the best partnerships come from saying no a lot. And I'll back up and say that. When you're in business development, when you're closing partnerships, everyone wants to partner with you. You get judged on how many times you say no, because if you say yes to everything, what you're doing is you're taking up your most valuable asset, which is your time. If you're working on 25 really, really bad projects, then, you know, you're not going to be able to have any success. So as you're looking at things, you're not only saying, hey, like, where can I have the best success of bringing in these new clients, but you're also saying, this is an interesting one, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. That Minority Report, just like throwing things around a screen and then choosing the one that's most important.
I mean, and I think, you know, that's a valuable skill to have as an entrepreneur, because, you know, especially when you're first starting out, it can seem almost impossible to want to say no to a potential client, a potential job, a potential profit. So, I mean, was it ever a moment in time where it was, you know, saying no was difficult for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, you know, one of the hardest parts of being a venture capitalist is saying no. And it's people say like, what are some of the highlights of the market shift over the last 6 months? I say, honestly, I get less white noise and a little bit less deal flow of like those tricky ones where you're like, I love the idea, but is the team right? I'm so lucky to have Fiat Growth, the consultancy, because Fiat Growth does so much due diligence for us and so much evaluation for us. Like I look at a lot of other VCs out there, I'm like, man, I'm not sure how y'all do it. Y'all are investing in an idea and a team, you know, all you're able to really look at is their LinkedIn, go to lunch with them, get a really well-oiled deck, and you got to like make a gut call if this is the right investment or not. I have done everything in my power through the creation of Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures to make it so we can measure everything as much as possible before we have to say no. Because there's one thing I hate doing. I hate saying no just because I have spidey senses. I want to be able to say no because I have like an overwhelming amount of data that I need to sift through before I do it. So still today, I have deals that I look at and I'm like, man, the answer is no. And a lot of time, you know, saying no is tough because we've worked with this company for 2 years and they're just not quite there yet. And there's that still that emotional piece of your heart where you're like, I wanted us to get there together and we just weren't able to. And that could be a number of reasons. That, you know, maybe the market changed, you know, maybe the product's no longer relevant, or I don't believe it's built for the next 20 or 30 years of the market. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times today, luckily I have enough data to make very logical yeses or nos, but it's always tough to make that emotion, that no, that's just emotional because you built such a deep connection with the founder and a team.
Exactly. No, what I mean, it makes sense. You know, and I guess venture capitalists have to say no to a lot of things. So I feel like, you know, Fiat again has that advantage and has the upper hand because, you know, you're just getting the chance to, like you said, do your due diligence. And it's kind of like feeding itself in a way. So, I mean, at this point, with having worked with so many companies, how much of it is, you know, making a decision based off data analytics, and how much of it is based off that gut feeling, that intuition at this point?
In early stage investing, team is still by far the most important thing. Ideas are a dime a dozen. I will say like having a natural born executor, people that are executors and can deal with the operations of getting an idea off the ground, massively important. But that DNA, that grind, as we all say it, like, you know, there's just some things that can't be taught. So, you know, as we're from a Fiat standpoint, just as much as we're looking at the product and seeing what their users are saying, equal amount of importance is how are folks responding to the good times, and even more importantly, the bad times and the failures. And when they get knocked down, how are they pivoting, or how are they saying, no, you guys are all wrong. I know my hypothesis is right, and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to understand if it's right or wrong, without, who cares what y'all are saying. So from my standpoint, it's just really important to not lose sight of who the person that you're investing in, the leaders of that team. Because the one thing that we can fall into at Fiat is, we're like, this product is killing it. Everyone's using it, 100,000 users month over month, and potentially forgetting about like, but is the right person leading this ship? Is this person that can take it to $1 billion business? So, we're constantly looking at every single angle of everything, but team, and we call it team and TAM, right? The team, the people leading the ship. TAM is the total addressable market. Like, how many actual users can we get if we got every single user? Two massively important things, but we still have that unfair advantage of the Fiat growth engine, right? That's constantly able to not just have a lunch with someone, but be in the throes with them on a daily basis.
What was that spark that got you intrigued or interested in the finance world or that fintech world? Is this something that kind of developed over time, or were you always interested in this industry?
So it was less so finance. It was more so the low to middle income communities across the US, and making sure that they weren't forgotten. I was always asking myself throughout my career, especially with the exposure to my family, who spent so much time in this like civic engagement and the success of low to middle income communities across the nation. I always wanted to make sure that I wasn't just out here searching to gain financial prosperity, but I was also making sure that the rest of the world, and a lot of the folks that many times are forgotten, are experiencing financial prosperity. That road led to Fintech, where Fintech is a number of things, right? That's people earning money. That's people managing money. That's people saving money. It's also financial literacy, making sure people understand money. So it's something that they can hold on to for the rest of their lives. And the way I've seen work kind of shift over the past decade in the future is, I believe, I talked about it earlier, I think it's shifting. I don't think people are just going to have one job. Today, you could wake up and say, I want to drive for Uber, I want to deliver for DoorDash, and I want to create websites on Fiverr, and 20 other. I want to go I want to go mount TVs on TaskRabbit, and through all that, right, you could maybe make $200,000, right? Like, what are you going to do with that money? How do we make it so you can earn money better and manage it better? How can we make it so your money is making money while you're sitting back and taking a break from all the work that you're doing? So from my standpoint, I was really focused on making sure that the right technologies were being built for these communities, and making sure it was getting in the hands of the people that needed it most, and making sure that we also weren't putting any predatory products in front of folks. You talk about payday lending, you talk about a lot. Like, with money, it can be used for bad, man. Even in the hands of good sometimes, just because it's in the hands of someone that's never been exposed to that community and don't understand their life. So also just making sure that like everything that's coming out into this world from a digital finance standpoint is working harmoniously with the people that need it most.
That's incredible. I mean, and it feels like the theme of this interview so far has just been, your excitement and love for civic and social aspects, as well as, the business development side of it, because I can hear the energy in your voice, and I can feel the energy when you talk about business development and what makes a good business, and how to grow a business properly. But one question I want to ask, an accomplishment that you've achieved is that you raised $15 million. So I want to ask, what was that process like, and how did you accomplish a feat, of this size, of this magnitude?
Yeah, a lot had to be built before we could embark on that journey. Um, the business had to be built, our network had to be built, our reputation had to be built. Um, People also really had to understand our really unique model, like what the connection between Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures is very unique, and you don't see a lot of businesses out there like that, where we do so much measurement before we lean in with an investment check. But once we were able to really build up the engine that is Fiat, Alex and I were really lucky enough to connect with a close buddy of mine, a guy named Marcos Fernandez, who Hispanic American, close buddy of mine. Like, we're really big on making sure that we were minority led as a VC fund. It's incredibly important for folks that look like me, that look like Marcos. Our perspectives are heard in this fintech space because we have such a unique exposure to all these different markets. But when we initially decided to do it, we told ourselves we had supreme confidence. We were like, we're gonna do this thing. It's gonna take us 6 to 8 months, and we're just gonna grind it out. And by the way, the market when we started raising money was hot. Everything was clicking. We had all of our network saying, you guys should go raise a fund. We were like, of course, we're gonna do it. It ended up taking us around a year. And like, looking back on the stats, if you talk about every single conversation we had, probably came out to like maybe a little over 1,000 different conversations. Like, those are Zooms, those are phone calls, those are the calls between the calls. And how it always happens is you talk to one person hoping that they're going to be the key. They introduce you to someone else, and all of a sudden 20 conversations later, it's like, oh, this is the person I need to talk to. And then they're the investor. The initial checks that we got in were from our network. They were from founders of companies that we had helped scale. They were from other VCs that we had done a ton of credible work for. And then, after that, there were other people that said, we really love your model. So fund one is always the hardest. And the people that are able to raise fund two and fund three and fund four are the ones, the folks that are able to raise fund one are only able to do it because that's what they want to do the rest of their life. And ultimately, like, what we're trying to do is do this the rest of our life. Raise fund 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, be able to make a massive impact, and most importantly, like, put in the work, man. Like, put in the work. When we look LP, a limited partner, an investor in the eye, and say, like, listen, you're giving us your money, and what we're going to do with that money is we are going to put it in the hands of the best entrepreneurs in this world that are building the best products in this world, and we are going to put the full strength and engine of Fiat Growth behind them to ensure their wild success. And when I say what is success? Success is somebody that can return the fund. Like, we're typically looking for anywhere between 2 and 3% of every single company that we invest in. Every single company we invest in, we expect to become $1 billion business. And $1 billion business is one that's going to make a massive impact on the world and change a lot of lives for the better, because we invest in those types of companies.
I mean, working with these investors and having these different general partners, limited partners, are there any pressures that come with, these expectations? And if so, I mean, how do you manage these pressures and manage these expectations?
We go back to like business development, we go back to business. The pressure of expectations can really only come from you not setting the right expectations up front. We've done a really great job at telling our story. We've done a really great job at telling every single investor we have behind us what we built, how it works, and how we're going to make sure it works. And the best thing you can do as you're raising a fund is do everything you told that person that you're going to do. I'm a big fan of like my say to do ratio. And I think our whole company is like, do you do everything you say? And is that ratio 100%? Is it 90%? Is it 80%? Like, Kobe Bryant always says, don't break a contract with yourself. Like, that's what we do. Right. So, raising a fund is about trust and it's about relationships. And for us, We are fully transparent. We build incredibly deep relationships. We maintain them and we nurture them, and we over communicate. Someone's struggling, you invest in our fund, you're the first person that's going to know it. Someone's doing great, you're going to know it. We made new investment, you're going to know it. We don't have enough money, or we don't have, this company's raising at such a late stage that we can't invest in it through the fund, but we still have access to investment. We're going to send an email out to all of our LPs. Hey, we can't invest through the fund, but if you guys are interested in investing in this company, let us know. But again, over socializing and building that trust and maintaining those relationships is incredibly important. But what that does is it makes it so there's no surprises for anyone. And if there is a surprise, we're the first people you're going to hear from, and we're going to give you our perspective as why that's going to specifically affect you because as it connects to your investment into Fiat Ventures.
I mean, and just speaking of managing relationships and managing people, you were able to grow your company from 2 employees to 25 employees, which is not an easy thing to do. From picking the right employees and going with the right fit to, keeping the team members happy, keeping everything cohesive and running smoothly. So, I mean, how were you able to expand the company so much?
Well, it's really interesting. Prior to the pandemic, we had 3 employees. At the end of the pandemic, some people could argue we're still in it. We have 25 employees. As challenging as the pandemic was, I'm actually thankful for it in many ways. One is it forced us to think about hiring a team and curating a team in a non-traditional way. As we all know, historically, you have a headquarters and you have an office, and you say, great, we got to hire everyone within this small geography so they can all be in the office. To date, we've never had an office, and the majority of our team is not in the Bay Area. And it forced us to look for talent and discover talent in some really unlikely places. So first and foremost, we got a team of 25, but we were able to do that in a really creative way and basically ultimately hire some of the best folks around. One thing we also did is we made a decision early on that we didn't just want to fill bodies when we needed someone. We wanted to make sure we were getting the best of the best. So what Fiat Growth is made up of is basically all the people we wish we could have hired at all of our previous jobs once upon a time. And don't get me wrong, these are not necessarily cheap hires, right? Everyone gets paid what they're worth. We have ex CMOs on our team, ex VPs of growth, ex SVPs of partnerships. These are people, when they walk in and they get on the phone and they talk about what our strategy is, people say, and you say, hey, how do you know? Well, why is your strategy the best? And they tell you why and everything they did in the past. They say, oh, I get it. Yeah, let me back up. Let's try this out. So the great thing was, of course, you can't hire folks unless you're bringing on new business. We were lucky enough where our reputations were bringing on a lot of this business, a lot of the relationships we created were driving new business. And because of that, we were able to scale up in this really thoughtful way with all these really great senior team members that were really excited about our vision. And that vision being Fiat Ventures, being what Fiat Growth can ultimately be. Honestly, the one of the most exciting thing about kind of where we've gotten the business is that we've never raised any money to do it. We raised money for Fiat Ventures, but for Fiat Growth, that was Alex and myself taking a risk 4 years ago and just organically building up this client base and being able to hire people along the way. So the journey to us is just a little bit sweeter because we felt like we didn't need, any NOS in the engine to get to 100 miles an hour. We were able to do that naturally.
That's incredible, man. I mean, my hat's off to you for what you've built and what you've created. And I guess the next thing I want to ask you is, what is it like navigating and founding a company and scaling it in the tech world where minorities make up only 4% of the workforce?
I feel proud. And I feel like there's weight on my shoulders to represent, because we talked about it earlier of like, what was it like walking into the tech world early in your career till now? And I always tell myself, like, whatever I can do, if that's mentoring, if that's, talking to entrepreneurs, if that is going back to East Oakland and like talking to these kids, whatever I can do to make it so it doesn't take them a decade of their career to like learn how they should be in their career. However, I can like, condense that delta, I want to be able to do it. Also, I've always felt like, I'm not one black man. I'm one of many, but I've always felt like I've had to step up, and decisions I make, any failures I make, and wins I make, it's not just for me, but it's for every black man that works in tech or doesn't work in tech. And so I am actually very thankful to have that responsibility, because I also think that's very much built into my grind and how Fiat growth and Fiat Ventures exists in the first place. Because me knowing that was a responsibility that I had to hold on to, has put me in a really, really great situation, to one, be successful for myself, but to two, be in a place where I can help everyone else coming behind me.
I mean, and just speaking on, helping everyone else that's coming up behind you and that's looking up to you and that's kind of modeling their careers or modeling themselves after you, what would you say are some important lessons or, roadblocks that you had to learn or experience early on in your career?
One is it's be comfortable be ready to fail, be comfortable failing. Like now in my career, I say it to my team all the time: fail fast, fail as often as you can, but just make sure that when you fail, you learn from it, you quickly stand up, and you iterate. And I'll actually bring it back to marketing. Marketing is all about failing. You run as many tests as possible, you iterate on that test as many times as possible, because if you keep failing and iterating, you'll finally find that sweet spot. And that sweet spot could be the difference of getting 10 users for the app, or a million users for the app, or a billion users for the app. So, you know, when I think about, those different things, I used to think about failure earlier in my career as like, oh, guess I got to pack my bags and go look at a different industry. Where I wish earlier in my career, when I had some hiccups, I said, it's all good. Like, let me straighten up the tie, let me tighten it a bit, and it's fine. I'm just going to iterate the next time. And when someone asks what went wrong, I'm going to say, this is exactly what went wrong. This is why this happened. And this is what I'm going to try next time. And I don't always want to bring race into it, but I was honestly like, it weighed on me a bit. I was like, man, now they think I am what they thought I was. Now I got to get out of here. And so now, because of the confidence and the person that I built up, I can confidently fail and not look around and be like, oh, they're judging me for this, that, and the other. I'm a lot stronger than that. I'm more calloused up.
Now, and I felt those exact same feelings that you're mentioning. Like when you're in that world, it feels like, man, you feel like you don't have this space to fail like everyone else, because you feel like, man, now they can judge me. Now they can say, oh, he knew we shouldn't have partnered with this guy, did business with this guy. But I think what you're saying is exactly right, and it's an important lesson to like internalize and to voice.
100%. 100%. Hard lesson though. Hard lesson.
Exactly. So I mean, how do you define success as a founder and as a general partner?
Man, this sounds cheesy, man, but I always say it like, I love Michelle Obama's book, because it's a great book, but also just because it's entitled Becoming. Like, I feel like I'm in my best place as an entrepreneur, when something's always evolving and moving. I love what I built at Fiat Growth. I will always be trying to build up on what has already been built. But this idea of what Fiat Growth is becoming is like the entrepreneurial DNA that like runs through my veins. Because I like to always, like, when I think about the story, like, I like to always start at the end of the story and then work my way back. Because if I start at the end and I go to the bottom, I'm inspired because I'm like, I just saw the future. So
Exactly.
what we're building at Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures is, it's going to be phenomenal. Like, when I think about Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures, I was like, maybe we can be Bain, maybe we can be McKinsey, maybe we can be Accenture, maybe we can be the next wave of business consulting. But instead of just investing in businesses and then helping them scale, we're helping them scale and then investing and then continuing to help them scale. Maybe we can flip this whole VC world on its head, and we can truly like change the way investing is done. Like, these are the things I think about, these are the stories I'm crafting. But I just think it's really important, as an entrepreneur, I have to stay in that future state, a little bit of me, because to me that is the carrot that like just keeps me inching forward, like no matter what. Like, if I'm running into a wall, a massive fail, a ball dropped, a big win, I'm always looking ahead of me and being like, oh, I see that thing that I dreamt of last night, and I'm headed in that direction.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, this next question, I feel like you hint at it a little bit already, but I still want to ask it just to see, what would you say is the most important reason for your current success?
My parents. I My parents and my family. There's one thing I've also learned, though, is especially building a business and building a team, family isn't just your blood. Family is whatever you make it. Communities are king. I'm a big believer of like the future trend of community as a service. Like, I just think it's just gonna like keep getting really incredible. But I say my family and my parents. Growing up around both two parents that just instilled like, hey man, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, and we support you whatever you do. Super helpful. I also grew up around a father. Unfortunately, my father passed in 2013, but he was my best friend. And my dad was probably the best public speaker I ever knew today. And my dad never wrote a note down prior to a speech, like,
Wow.
free floated every single time. And I was a little kid where both my parents had to work. Like, I wasn't chilling with some nanny at the house. Like, my dad was going to a city council meeting or he was going to a presentation. Like, I was back there with coloring books, just like listening. And I was doing that, basically all through high school a lot of times. And my mom was very similar. She was a principal, she was a French teacher, just really great with words, incredible orators in general. So a lot of my success came from my parents because they were these great free flowers, where it hurt in school a little bit. Like, I didn't get the best grades in school as a young kid because I was like, the world I grew up in was coloring outside of the lines. Great, yeah, I'll color inside the lines, but like, I can't wait till I hit the corner because I'm about to go out and we're going to turn this into something different. And my parents, I don't think it was in their blood to be like, I'm going to teach them this, but by me witnessing them and being so embedded in their world, I was able to learn that by just simply being there. And because of my dad, I can inspire people with words. Because of my dad, I can think outside of the lines. Because of my mom, I can speak incredibly well. Because of my mom, like, I don't take myself too seriously. But all these like really important characteristics to like lead a company, to grow a company, to build a community, to be a good friend, a good son, a good father, a good husband. It was like these like pillars that were built at a super early age that I was able to build on. And we all talk about it, like, if you don't learn it early enough, it can't really be taught later on in life. And I was lucky enough to have a community and my parents to instill like all the right pillars early. So at this point in my life, I just continue to build on them, and I'm not trying to play catch up and learn them.
No, man, and I think that's amazing. I mean, I also think it's super cool too, man, just because, with you being from Oakland and the emphasis that you put on community and um, civil and social matters. And it's like Oakland just has that history of like wanting to help others and build community and come together and protect its own, from like Black Panther movement and just
Yep.
how you mentioned that your father was an amazing public speaker and then you yourself are like able to rally people up um by using your words wisely, man. I just think that's a really, really cool connection. And it shows in the work that you're doing in the companies that you're building and creating today.
I really appreciate that. Really do.
Yes, sir. So how would you like for people to remember you and your companies?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, Fiat Growth and Fiat Ventures, they are businesses, but they are mission driven businesses. They're businesses that are trying really, really hard, in everything we do to lower the access barrier for the 99% of America and frankly the world that I've always felt the digital world has forgotten until late. So for us, we really focus on making sure that we're working with founders and we are working with entrepreneurs that are building really incredible businesses that are driving revenue and making tons of money, but are focused on solving problems that are positively impacting the world. Just so happens today, our main focus now is fintech and financial services, but over time, we will definitely be expanding out to a number of other industries. If that be e-commerce, if that be embedded fintech, like buy now, pay later options, all the way over to like health tech and making sure that we're focused on, getting health insurance and even looking at different like prop tech and making sure that folks are able to get access to housing. And so for us, really, we have that North Star of lowering the access barrier for the people that need the most access. And we follow that North Star. And that is kind of what guides us as we continue to build and go back to that word becoming, as we keep becoming new things, to know that it's very much in line with the mission of what we're trying to build.
Drew, thank you so much for your time today, man. I'm definitely a lifelong supporter and a fan of what you're doing. And I want to continue to watch you create and just impact the world as well as the community as your community. And just thank you for your time today, man, and allow me to get the chance to pick your brain. I feel like in this episode you dropped some real gems and the people will really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you and incredible questions. You had me thinking on a couple real deep levels. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.